how would you grade the Seahawks signing of Sam Darnold?
I think he was helped a lot by Kevin O'Connell being his head coach, who seems to get more out of quarterbacks than most head coaches do. He ranked 5th in the NFL in passing yards, 4,319 and 35 TDs, earning his first career Pro Bowl. He had 3 TD passes, interestingly enough, against the Seahawks in 2024 and a 27-24 win in December. But he fell apart when it counted most in the last 2 weeks. The last 2 games of the year for them. The last game against the Lions when they could have won the number 1 seed, and then the loss to the Rams in the playoff game. And in those 2 games, he was 23 passes off target, and combined they gave up 58 points and only scored 18. So it was really not good at all. When he was signed by the Vikings, they viewed him, I think, as an insurance plan. When they were out to draft their quarterback of the future, who turned out to be J.J. McCarthy, who got hurt in the preseason and couldn't play in 2024. Darnold was the number 3 pick in 2018 draft. He spent 3 years with the Jets, 2 with the Panthers, 1 as a backup to Brock Purdy with the 49ers, and 1 year with the Vikings, which was viewed as his final opportunity to prove he could be an NFL starter, and he did that, I think. Smith, on the other hand, is 34 years old to Darnold's 27. He's in the final year of a $75 million contract and wanted an extension at $45 million per year, while the Seahawks counted at $35 million. They traded him to the Raiders and got that 3rd-round pick. He's scheduled to make $25 million in non-guaranteed salary in 2025, and the Raiders will likely negotiate a new deal. I'd say Darnold outplayed Geno Smith last year. Whether he'll be able to continue to perform at this level is the big question mark, given his fall off when it counted most. But Geno Smith didn't make the playoffs last year with Seattle, and Darnold did make the playoffs. I think that they get him for less money than they would have had to re-sign Geno Smith for, and they wound up with a 3rd-round pick. So I give the grade, like a B+.
No, I think this is a bad signing because now you went from a stable quarterback that wasn't going to get you anywhere to instability who's also not going to get you anywhere. Because, yeah, Sam Darnold had a tremendous year, but we have to realize that he had Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, the number 1 left tackle, a tremendous offensive head coach, and as well, on top of the fact their defense was number 1 in pressures through a majority of the season. So everything fit beautifully into what ultimately became a massive contract for Sam Darnold. There was a reason why I think that the Seahawks looked at him. He was obviously out of every free agent quarterback, he was the number 1 option because we just saw a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers had a nice second-half resurgence, but he went 5-12 last year. Justin Fields, we saw him for 6 games. Mike Tomlin didn't even look his way the rest of the season. Daniel Jones, a complete bum the last 2 seasons. Ever since he signed the contract, he has been terrible. So there wasn't any chance of them going to try to, one-up Geno Smith in this case. There just wasn't, and then there was a slew of backups, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, who, by the way, got signed to the Dolphins. There's a bunch of these backup quarterbacks that aren't going to go anywhere. So really, Sam Darnold was the only option, and that's why you went with them, because you got a pretty decent draft pick out of the DK trade and also out of the Geno Smith trade, and you don't got to keep Geno Smith around for $40 to $45 million per year, which I also don't think, we're going to talk about this Friday, what I also don't think he's worth. So when it came to it, this was your best shot. Really, this was probably your best shot. But again, my question is, what version of Sam Darnold are we going to get? And I brought these stats up before, but I just want to make it abundantly clear. This was Sam Darnold the first 17 weeks, and the last 2, he looked terrible. He looked absolutely trash. A 66 passer rating. He did get sacked a lot, and the reason why you might be like, well, the offensive line broke down. Well, let's see. The past couple years, 2020, the Seahawks offensive line and pass blocking was 22nd. 2021, they were ranked 27th. 2022, 23rd. 2023, 27th. And last year, they were ranked dead last. So Sam Darnold's going from a pretty decent offensive line with a lot of weapons to a team with no offensive line. I'm sure it's going to grow, but no offensive line. And when we talk about weapons, they just got rid of Tyler Lockett, their wide receiver 2. They got rid of DK Metcalf, who was their wide receiver 1. I don't think JSN at this current time is fit to be a number 1 wide receiver. So they're stuck with JSN, Jake Bobo, and I want to make sure I get this. I'm probably going to bounce the name wrong. Derek K. Young. Those are your top 3 wide receivers. I like Noah Fant. But is he going to get you anywhere? No. So it's going to be Sam Darnold with Kenneth Walker and JSN as your main threats, and an offensive line that couldn't block anything. Charles Cross is a perfectly okay offensive lineman, but the fact that you were dead last in pass block efficiency last year, that's a little bit shocking. Your defense also needs a little bit of work. So I think this is just a bad signing because you're going from Geno Smith, who showed a decent amount of stability. He wasn't a guy who's going to take you to the Super Bowl or take you anywhere even close to sniffing a Super Bowl, but at least he was a stable quarterback. You can get you 68% completion percentage. You're going to get 3,800 yards, give or take. You're going to get a decent amount of touchdowns with some interceptions, but every bad quarterback throws a decent amount. Sam Darnold just threw 12. But at least there was a level of stability where it wasn't sporadic. Sam Darnold, we've seen, like the past 2 weeks, the last 2 times we saw him, sporadic throw of the football, seeing ghosts, not completing passes, missing open guys in the end zone. And that's with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, a good offensive line, a really great defense, with a TJ Hawkinson at tight end. So you're going to a team with a lot of talent, a great offensive-minded head coach, a good offensive line, good running attack, to a good running attack with no offensive line, no great defense, a defensive-minded head coach, and you're switching from stable to instability, in my opinion, for this. I would give this probably a C+, just because you don't have great draft capital, at least late, like early in the first round. You don't have a tremendous. Let's bring up the draft. I don't even think you're in the top 12. Let's bring it up right now. You're not even in the top 12 of picks. So you went, I think, 10-7 last year. So I think it's going to be, you're not going to find your starting quarterback in the draft. But what I could say is, for what was available, this was the best one. But the level of competition, it wasn't really that much unless you want to stick with a 41-year-old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this was a great move at all.
Well, that's an interesting analysis you provide there. I think the jury is still out on Sam Darnold. I think he showed what he could do.
He's played 7 years. What do you mean the jury's still out?
He showed what he could do, though, this past year. He won 14 games. So
with a stacked roster.
Stacked roster helped, and the Seahawks probably aren't done yet. They're going to go out and try to get a wide receiver for sure. I mean, they have some draft picks now with Metcalf with that trade, and they also have the Darnold for the Smith trade gives them a 3rd-round pick, so there'll be some players there they can add, but
none of them are Jordan Addison or Justin Jefferson.
No, but
you don't have a tight end in
there
TJ Hawkinson.
There are some wide receivers that are free agents that haven't been picked up yet. Amari Cooper is still out there.
Amari Cooper had his worst season with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he'll be his worst. He's still not that old, right? I don't think he's.
I think he's mid-30s, close to being in mid-30s. So, I mean, we just saw him with Josh Allen, who just won the MVP. He's 30 years old, about to turn 31.
30 years old.
Right, but we just saw him with Josh Allen, who just won the MVP. He had his worst statistical season of his entire career. On the Buffalo Bills, he played in 8 games. He had 297 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Well, they brought him in the latter part of the season.
But he played in 8 games.
He did their offense very well. I think they found that they had more with Shakir and some of those other guys that really rounded into shape better. Coleman later in the season.
If Khalil Shakir's beating you, then how does that show on your part? If Khalil Shakir is out-snapping you and is a more reliable target than Amari Cooper,
I think it was a scheme. I think it's a scheme more than it was individual talent there. I think Amari Cooper is still a good wide receiver. There's some other wide receivers.
That is yet to be proven, though.
There's still some other wide receivers out there, too, right? Who else is still remaining from free agent wide receivers?
I haven't looked at the free agent wide receiver class because all the good ones are already gone. The Chris Godwin was the best one out there, and he re-signed with the Bucs. So, I mean, really, there's no X factor on the market anymore. If we're being honest, you're going to need to push for a Brandon Ayuk, who it looks like the 49ers are doing. I would call it a hard reset, not a rebuild, but a reset. But you don't have the capital unless you're going to trade away a Kenneth Walker, who probably won't even go for that. A Leonard Williams could be in a trade like that. A Julian Love, or even a Reek Woolen. You could put those guys in, but those are some foundational pieces of your defense. Offensively, you got basically nobody. So right now, Sam Darnold will be throwing to JSN, Jake Bobo, Derek Young, and Noah Fant.
No, they're going to have to add a receiver or two.
Based on that roster alone, what do you think their record is for 2025? I say they don't win more than 6 games.
I don't know what their schedule looks like.
I don't think it will matter. They could have the easiest schedule in the world, but I think
They're
just
in a
with
tough
that level of talent.
Well, the division is not easy.
And the Cardinals added Josh Sweat, so they needed a pass rusher. Well, they got Josh Sweat, one of the best pass rushers last year. So that division, like you said, is getting better, and you have a serious threat in the Los Angeles Rams, who could have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs last year. This team's going nowhere. I have zero confidence in the Seattle Seahawks going anywhere with Sam Darnold as your quarterback. I don't care what he did last year. We can take a look at last year and realize that he had one of the best offensive rosters with one of the best offensive minds in the NFL right now in Kevin O'Connell. And their defense, through a large part of the season, kept them in these types of games. Against the New York Jets, picked off Aaron Rodgers 6 times, one of which got returned for a pick 6. That got the Jets head coach Robert Saleh fired after that game.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Seahawks had a pretty good defense last year. Right?
Did they?
Their defense was okay. I thought they played pretty well down the stretch.
They were average.
No, but they weren't so good early in the season, but after the bye, they played very well.
Well, after the bye, you played Cardinals twice, Jets, the Bears. No, those aren't difficult teams. And even then, the Seahawks lost to the New York Giants with Daniel Jones. How can you do that? You allowed the Giants to put up 29 points against you. This is a team that was going for, historical record.
No, they had a winning record last year. They were in it until the last week of the season.
Yeah, because you played the Cardinals twice, the Jets, the Bears. Oh, but by the way, they only beat the Bears for a score of 6-3.
No, that was a pretty ugly
6-3. That was the Thursday night game. That was the day after Christmas. It was
an
brutal.
ugly game.
It was brutal. No, this team's going nowhere. I have a Seahawks fan that's a friend of mine. He thinks they're screwed as well. He's not as confident. He's confident in Sam Darnold, but the team is kind of screwed when you get rid of a foundational piece in Tyler Lockett, who's been there forever, DK Metcalf, who is an insane talent for you, and then you're left with Jake Bobo.
Well, maybe they will re-sign Tyler Lockett.
Not a chance. I mean, he cleared up a lot of cap space, but I don't think you're going to bring him. But you might. It wouldn't surprise me if you do, but who knows? Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.